Just going to get started. If everybody can see me and hear me, make sure you have a pen, your coffee, and we'll get started. You are here for the 3 contract tips to protect your job and your salary during the pandemic. By the end of the time together, you'll be able to recognize key lines in your contract. So anyways, you're here because you're worried the pandemic could put you out of a job. Maybe you're here because the pandemic has already or might soon impact your salary. Or you're here because you want advice from a licensed sports law attorney. I have been a sports law attorney for over 30 years, but I've been in the football business really my whole life. I am a coach's kid and a coach's wife, which I really think gives me a different perspective on being a sports agent. I've successfully represented coaches, athletic director, football staff, NFL players, NFL coaches, and college coaches for my whole career, including UFC fighters, Olympic athletes. So that has allowed me, fortunately, to be exposed to many different kinds of contracts and many different types of situations. So my experience with universities is really what I'm going to talk about in here, and what I see happening in contracts right now, honestly. You're the only one who can often fix what's going on along with whoever is representing you. And what always concerns me about many people that I've represented is a lot of times they come to me after they've already signed the contract. Well, it becomes too late, because then what you're doing is you're fixing the problem rather than solving the problem at the front end. And I just want, and I'm always shocked at how many coaches tell me that they didn't read their contract from the beginning, or they didn't know what a lot of the words meant in the contract from the beginning. And that is concerning. If you have to agree to something, at least understand what you're agreeing to. And I think that's one of the tips that maybe is not in the slide deck, but read your contract is probably the number one. If you have a question, ask either the university or ask whoever's representing you if you have representation. Okay, so the first problem that I have seen that is coming up in many contracts is language that ties your paycheck to the head coach being employed there. So let's see, what does that look like? What am I talking about? Well, the language in the contract would say something like, the assistant coaches are employed at will of the head coach and can be hired or fired without regard to the policies at the university and the athletic department, since they are at will. What are you talking about? Well, I'm going to tell you, this actually happened with a client of mine. The client came to me, by the way, after he'd already signed the contract. And I started to do some research. And I found that this was the language in the head coach's contract, which the employee didn't even know anything about. And basically what it said is that you're at will. What does at will mean? At will means we can fire you at any time, meaning the head coach can fire you at any time. And it goes on further to say, without any regards to the policies at the university or the athletic department, since you're at will. And I thought, wait a minute, this person has a contract, but in the head coach's contract, it says that they're at will, and everything that the university said is thrown out the window. This was really scary to me. So then I looked at the assistant coach's contract at this same school, and it said that the coach's appointment as assistant football coach is coterminous with the head football coach. Coterminous, what does that mean? What it means is that if the head coach gets terminated, you're basically terminated. What? Well, a lot of coaches, with coterminous, I don't understand that. And what they're saying is, and it goes further on in this language to say this, is if the head football coach is terminated, resign, or ceases to perform his duties, whatever that means, your contract terminates, okay, unless it's extended in writing, okay, at the end of the current month after the head coach resigns, terminates, or stops performing duties, or June 30th, whichever comes first, okay? Well, usually the date that comes first is usually the current month, okay? So this was certainly scary because the head coach actually left and went somewhere else and didn't take this particular coach with him, or this coach didn't know whether he was taking him with them. So it's very concerning, any language in your contract that is tied to the head coach, or if you're the head coach and they are doing this to you, I want to tell you, it causes a lot of distrust amongst the assistant coaches, because when this assistant coach found this out and I figured all this out, he told all the other coaches. So not only if you are a head coach, you need to understand what's in your contract and how it impacts your assistant, because that can create a real trust problem if they figure it out. And it's really just completely unfair. The second thing, and maybe some of you have, maybe some of you haven't, have you guys seen force majeure clauses in your contracts? Okay, what's a force majeure clause? That means a certain event happens, like the pandemic or a fire or something, and it makes it so it's impossible to form on the contract. So some contracts already had force majeure clauses on it, and everybody always thinks, oh, we're never going to have to enact this clause. Well, then with the pandemic, that is the clause that universities used to not pay people or reduce people's salary. But in addition to that, let me show you what some universities did do. And this really did happen. Right before the end of one of my clients' contracts, like one day before, the university changes all the language. This is another thing that happens all the time. The next year, when we renegotiate, they make a change in the contract. And it's usually because something happened in the past year and they make a change. So what did they do? They basically put sections in the contract that reduce the coach's salary by the amount of people that were going to be in the stadium or the arena. What are you talking about? What they did is they said, if you look at this clause about 3 down where it says epidemic, okay, there is actually the word epidemic in this force majeure clause. But then, and I would consider COVID, you would be able to say that COVID would be an epidemic. Okay, so that's how it would be. That's the force majeure event. Then it goes on, though, to further identify and be very specific about what we're going to do if this happens, if the epidemic affects these things, results in suspension or interruption of the regular operations of the athletic department. Now, we know that this year, everything was impacted. People were working from home. People were not going to games. So the epidemic did interrupt the operation and business of every athletics department in this country. And then it goes on to say, or results in suspension, interruption, disruption, or cancellation of the team's sporting events. Okay. Or limits audience attendance to the team's sporting events. As we know, that did happen. If you watched any games on TV or your team actually played, you know there weren't people in the stands in a lot of places. So technically, already under this wording, this coach is in trouble. Okay, but it does go on to further identify that this has to go on for 6 consecutive weeks, meaning interrupts the athletic department or interrupts games. Okay, has to go on for 6 weeks. And then what we can do is we can put you on a leave without pay period, or we can just terminate your agreement. Leave without pay, that's what it means. It means you aren't going to be working, but we're not going to pay you. They were nice enough to go and see and say, we are going to give you 15 days notice if we do this. but we're not going to pay you. Oh, but we will give you your benefits, which was nice. Now, I'm going to tell you that when this came to my desk, I was like, this isn't good. But the coach was like, well, what am I going to do? Well, I don't know. We can fight it or you can sign it. But this is what this all means. And he ended up signing it because he was afraid he was going to lose his job if he didn't sign it. Now, I will tell you, the university did not end up enacting this, even though all of this did happen, because there is a may in here. But I did not like this. I don't think people should agree to this. Okay. But I want to warn you, this is what's happening. I think it's going to continue to happen. If they didn't get it in last year's contract, they're going to try to get it in this year's contract. So beware if you're a coach. Beware. This is what's coming, because the universities all talk as well. There was more, and there was more into the rest of the contract that further defined leave without pay, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. I just want you to understand, look for this in your contract. Number 3, reassignment clauses. I really don't like reassignment clauses. This is a really great thing for universities to slip into contracts to get out of paying people. And what I mean by that is somewhere buried in your termination without cause section is a reassignment clause. And what the reassignment clause will say is something like this. If the employer terminates you without cause, what does without cause mean? Oh, wow, your team didn't do that well, or your position didn't do that well. We're firing you as the head coach because you didn't win enough games. We're firing you as the assistant coach because your group didn't perform well enough. Okay. So they fire you without cause. Without cause means they're going to pay you the rest of your contract. Okay. But in addition, they'll slip in, we can reassign you to a qualified position for the remainder of the contract. What? Why would they do this? I'll tell you why they do it. The reason why they put reassignment clauses in, they then put you swiping cards at the rec center, knowing that you won't like that job, and thinking, okay, they'll find a different job. Then what happens is they end up resigning, okay, from their new reassigned position, and I don't have to pay them for the rest of the contract. And I have had this happen. A coach was owed about $1 million, and his particular group didn't perform too great. Not that it was his fault. They were rebuilding a program, and they owed him a lot of money. So what they did is they stuck him in an office, and because they wanted to force him to quit or find another job. They wanted him to quit and find another job, so they didn't have to pay him even usually in a termination without cause section, they pay you the difference between what your new job is and your old job. And often people don't end up making as much money at the next job as they did the previous job, especially if they're making a lot of money. So they sat him in an office. I told him, go sit in the office. And then after about a week, I said, hey, you're creating a hostile work environment for my client. And they got scared, and they ended up terminating without cause, and he did end up getting the money. But I will tell you, he had to be pretty tough to do that. And this is what universities do. They put you in a reassigned position so they don't have to terminate you. I want you to understand that. And you end up quitting. So be careful, get these out of your contract. I see this happening all the time. I think with COVID, it's going to be more and more that they slip these in. Do not agree to them. Solutions. Okay, what can I do if this stuff does get in my contract? One of the things I am worried about for everyone is there was a lot of situations this year where an entire position was devastated by testing positive for COVID. And once they tested positive for COVID, people got fired this year because their group didn't perform as well. They didn't seem to take into account COVID. I have concerns about that. And one of the things I think people should put in their contract, and this is a tip that really you write this one down. I think people should put in their contract, if you have one or more players that tested positive for COVID, the epidemic, whatever it is, or is sick or has an injury, that you at your position, okay, cannot be terminated without cause or with cause. That you cannot be, because, you know, that's something you don't have control over. What I'm trying to say to coaches is, you put in your own force majeure clause. The one thing we can't control as a coach is somebody getting injured, somebody having illness. What happens if your best player is out with the flu? Okay. Why are we losing our jobs because I have a player who's sick or injured? Because that is what's happening. So I'm saying, protect yourself. Universities protect themselves. And I really think you should think about that. Put in something that protects you. If you have a certain amount of injuries or illnesses on your team during a year, you cannot be fired for cause. Let's see if they go for it. But that's one of my ideas for this year. In addition, if there's any language in your contract that ties your salary to the head coach, which I talked about in the beginning of this webinar, you need to get it removed in your next contract. Well, how do you get something removed? Well, you need leverage, okay? Either you're getting another job, okay? Or you've had a very successful year and they're happy with you and they're giving you more money and a better contract. You need to get it out when you have leverage, okay? With the force majeure situation, where they're basically going the whole entire athletics department, then, you know, I say you're going to have a mutiny. What I mean by that is everybody's going to have to work together to get it changed. You are going to need the person with the most power in the athletics department to help to get it changed. It may be that the athletics department is fighting the university on this. So you got to understand, you got to figure out who's making the decision, and you've got to collaborate with everyone and say, no, we're not agreeing to this. Because if you're all by yourself, unless you have a ton of leverage, it's going to be more difficult. So you need leverage and you need collaboration with the rest of the staff members. I will tell you the difference between coaches and like NFL players. NFL players, just so you know, I have a copy of all their contracts. So because of the union, we all share information. And I think one of the things that the coaches need to do a better job of is share information. And I'm talking about wording, because how much you make, you know, that's in USA Today. Okay. I can figure out what people make. It's the words that disturb me. It's the words that all of a sudden somebody's not get paid. They thought they had a 2-year deal. So I think it's important that you also start to share information. I think having a coaches, I mean, you have the coaches, the AFCA, but are you really sharing contract information? And you need to do that. Okay, now I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about how I represent people, in case any of you are interested in representation. You may be here because you've been fired before and you found out pretty quickly that you weren't protected. Let me tell you, you need somebody who has your back. That's why I think everybody needs representation, but you really need an attorney. Somebody who's good at marketing is great, but you also need an attorney. You need both. You need somebody who can market and who can negotiate deals. You might be here because you were looking for the right agent to protect your family. You might be here because you've already been asked to take a pay cut, and a lot of places did require a pay cut. But how you negotiated that matters. Some people got it on the back end. Some people turned things into split dollar life policy. There's lots of different creative ways that, you know, you maybe coach offensive line and there's a certain technique for that. Well, let me tell you, there's a certain way to handle contracts, which is what I'm good at. So hire somebody who's an expert in that area, because coaches aren't experts in contracts. They're experts in football. You need somebody who's an expert in dealing with contracts. Okay, if you're here for any of those reasons, you can continue to stay unrepresented if you want and just go it on your own, or you can start to protect your family. And I want you to know that what I did is I created a program called the Coaches Career Development program. Notice I don't say sports agent in there. Why? Because when I represent somebody, I'm representing your whole family, okay? Your whole family, not just you. And I want to have a long-term plan, a short-term plan, and I want to help you long-term, okay? And I don't want to just represent somebody for 3 months, 1 year, or one deal. I really want to have a long-term relationship because I do believe the more money coaches make, the more protection that you need. So I created this program. Okay, and in this program, this is what you will learn and get. You'll learn how to collaborate with me on a job search. You'll learn how to leverage your network, expand your network, and along with my fabulous assistant, Grace, you'll receive custom job application materials. I do that in a certain way. Contract review, contract negotiation, and contract protection. That is all included. All three of those things are very important. I just did something last week. Well, it took me 50 to 60 hours. And that's why it's important when I talk about what my fee structure is. But I was able to protect the person, and they needed protection, and they needed it right then. And you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when you're going to have a problem. I don't know when you're going to have a problem, but I'm going to be there when you need me. I have a unique process and workbook that I take you through. And then we have 4 coaching calls. That takes a little bit of time. But I need to know who you are and why you do what you do. And what I'm talking about, for instance, in that process, and I just want you to look at my logo. My logo says protection, advocacy, and trust. Okay, why does it say that? It's because I'm about protecting people, being an advocate, and a trusted advisor. That's who I am. When I was a kid, I didn't like it when somebody was picking on somebody on the playground. Okay, it wasn't going to happen if I was around. I'm Irish. That's an Irish logo. And if you see, there's like 3 little footballs in the Irish logo, and there's a circle. A circle stands for family, and I treat my clients like they're my family, and I'm going to protect them like they're my family. So I'm going to be your trusted advisor throughout the year, and of course, I'm going to have you network with the people that are currently in my Coach's Career Development Program. I also have a podcast called Representation Without Taxation, and I believe that everybody has a unique story and unique gifts. And I interview them on my podcast, and they can share their unique story on the podcast. Just so you know, in the chat box, my assistant has put in there a calendar link if you want to set a one-on-one meeting with me. Let's say you're thinking about, I want to actually join the Coach's Career Development Program, but I need to get my wife to meet Jill too, or I just have more questions. If you just want to sign up in the chat box, there's a link to that. And I also have a book, just so you know, in case you want to just buy my book. And I believe Grace has also shared a link to my podcast, which is free, Representation Without Taxation. Okay, who is this program not for? And I want you to listen very carefully. Number one, it's not for coaches who are not willing to spend 20 minutes a week to further their career. If you don't want to spend any time trying to move yourself up or just be better at the job that you're currently doing, then you don't want to be in this program. Number two, if you're not willing to invest money in an agent and you want everything for free, no. I don't work for free. You don't work for free. Listen, I'm married to a coach. My dad's a coach, and they get a lot of stuff for free. They get gear for free. They get tickets to games for free, on and on and on and on. I'm not free. Okay, I just want you to understand that. I even find it amazing to players. All of a sudden, they get the agent bill and they don't like it. Well, did you think I was doing this for fun? No. So if you don't want to invest in yourself and you don't want to invest money in an agent, then this is not for you. If you think that my network is going to get you a job, you also are in the wrong place. Let me talk about this issue. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in this whole business is that if I get the right agent, I'm going to get the job that I want. No, your work is going to get you the job. Your excellent work is going to get you the job that you want. Your inner circle, what I'm talking about is Your people that believe in you are going to help you get the next job. Now, let me do a caveat on that. Have I helped people get a job? Yes, I have. And I'll just give you an example. One of the guys that played for my dad was the head coach of the San Diego Chargers. So, okay, he had a job open. It was an assistant special teams job. I had a client that was at a very small school, like a Division II or Division III. And he was coaching there. He had done some minority internships in the NFL, and that particular head coach was looking for a certain type of person for the assistant special teams job. This person had done some internships, submitted his information. I had just run into the head coach at the Senior Bowl. He told me what he was looking for. I told this client to apply. This client then had a bunch of people from his inner circle call the head coach. Head coach then called me, who I'd known for like 25 years, and he ended up getting the job. So the combination of all those things got him the job, not just me knowing the head coach. I know lots of head coaches. I know lots of general managers, but that does not mean that they're going to hire my client if they're not the right fit in what they need. The other thing is also not for people who are sitting around worried about what's on Football Scoop all day, rather than doing a good job at their current football job. So this is who the program is not for. Now, let me tell you about how I charge. This is what I changed, and this is what I want you to understand. When I first started out, all my coaches, basically, I had them under a percentage contract, meaning a percentage of what they were making. Well, the ones that were making millions of dollars didn't like it because it was too much, maybe based on how much work I had done. If somebody called me up and said, hey, I need you to negotiate a deal for me, I'm going to automatically charge them $5,000. That's what it is. Because otherwise I have 32 years of experience. I'm not going to give you my 32 years of experience without being paid. So then I decided that, no, I'm just going to charge everybody a flat fee for the year. There is no contract. It's a flat fee for the year. And this allows me to take out how much you're making. Okay. How much you're making doesn't matter to me. Does not matter. Everybody is going to be paying the same, whether you're making millions of dollars or whether you're not. So this is what it is. It's $5,000 for the year. That's what it is. End of story. Oh, well, maybe you have $5,000. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're already paying somebody $20,000 a year, that's about what it costs for most sports agents in a year. It's usually about $20,000 when you get the bill. Okay. And they won't represent somebody doesn't have a high salary. Okay. And that's a problem because the people who need the help a lot of times are the younger men in this profession or the people who are not being protected. So you can do it over payments. I understand that it might be hard for somebody to come up with $5,000 right now. And for other people, super easy. Okay. So you can do 3 payments. It comes out to be a little bit more, which is $5,250, or you can just do 1 payment of $5,000. Okay. That's it. That's how it works. Also, in the second year, it's only $3,000. Why do I charge $5,000 the first year? Because the workbook takes quite a bit of time. It's going to take me probably at least, let's say it was probably going to take us around 6 hours to get that done. Well, if I'm charging by the hour, like I already told you, you're already up to $3,000 just for my time, because I usually charge $500 an hour. So that's really what it is. It's a one-time fee. Like I said, you can sign up right now. You can click on the Calendly link in the chat box and set up a meeting with me if you want to talk further with me. You also will get a planner. I want to make sure people are organized, and also my book, Born to be a Sports Agent. And the planner actually has my logo on it. I'm actually using it right now, but it's important that you stay organized, by the way. I don't know how anybody keeps track of things without their list, but if you are deciding to enroll, this is what it looks like. You're going to click on the link in the chat box, and it's going to go to the Coach's Career Development Program. Then it's going to say purchase and enroll. And then you're going to create a password. And then you're going to sign in. You're going to log in. and you're going to come up to what I call my courses, and there's a welcome video, and you'll get your first PDF to start the workbook, and then you'll set a one-on-one meeting with me once that's done. That drips. So every week you'll do one PDF, because I realize, I'm busy, you're busy. Just take one thing at a time, and you kind of need to do one step to get to the next step. And this has to do with the workbook. Sometimes people tell me they don't have time, meaning they want somebody else to do the work. If you don't have time to work on your career, I think that's just an excuse. I don't have the money. I find that people use money as an excuse. You need to invest in yourself. And honestly, you need somebody in your corner. This is a very volatile business. I don't know any coaches that have not needed an attorney at some point. None. Because everybody at some point loses their job. Or they just need help strategizing for their next job, whatever it is. They need somebody in their corner. I want somebody else to do the work. I will work with you to get to where you want to go, but let me tell you, we work together to get to where you want to go. I can't just guess, okay? It does take work to focus on your career. It does take work to protect you. And those are decisions we make together based on my expertise and yours. So listen, I would love it if you would enroll. Does anybody have any questions about anything? And just so you know, questions are going in the chat box. And again, thanks so much for being here. It doesn't look like anybody's going to ask any questions, but I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you have a very successful football season in 2021. So thanks a lot for being here. I really appreciate it.